Hey guys, it is officially rhubarb season and I'm already on my second bundle of rhubarb from my best friend, and it is a great low carb addition to some delicious keto baked goods. So today I'm bringing you a yummy, soft, moist rhubarb streusel muffin. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, thanks for joining me. My name is Alycia and I'm a pastry chef with a sweet tooth, and now I own a keto gluten-free bakery, which is right here in the downstairs of my home. I hope to one day have a storefront that you can all visit, and you can help me out greatly by subscribing, sharing my recipes with all your friends and family, ordering from my website and sharing my website with your friends. It all helps my channel and bakery grow and to bring you new recipes every Saturday. Today, a delicious muffin recipe, and this is a recipe I do have on my channel already. I made a cranberry orange muffin, and my streusel topping, I did make a pumpkin muffin, but I would suggest using this variation of muffin because it has a little bit better of a structure than my old pumpkin cream cheese muffin does. But I haven't changed anything about this recipe except for the amount of xanthan gum, because the xanthan gum I was using back when I was figuring out all these recipes was half the strength of the stuff I'm using today. And you can literally use any vegetable or fruit you want for this. In the cranberry orange muffins, I used orange juice as my acidic element to make my buttermilk, but because we're just doing rhubarb today, I'm just using apple cider vinegar and a low carb milk. But you can always swap out the milk. I've made tons of recipes, like my sour cream coffee cake kind of spun into this recipe. The only difference with a muffin recipe, I hated the fact that whenever I added add-ins to a lot of the baked goods, they would all sink to the bottom. So I took a long time in figuring out the ratios I needed to make a muffin that everything stayed suspended in and didn't all fall to the bottom. This is a little bit different than a lot of my other recipes. I already cut up 6 ounces of rhubarb. I did them pretty small because we're just making little tiny regular size like cupcake tin muffins, so you don't want super huge chunks in there. So I have 6 ounces, or about a little over a cup and a half. We're gonna make our keto buttermilk, which I just usually use the So Delicious unsweetened coconut milk. You can use pretty much any low carb milk you want. Like I said, in a lot of my recipes, I'll swap out the milks for like sour cream, or for like a pumpkin, I'll swap out pumpkin puree, stuff like that. So you want a total of 4.5 ounces here. We're only making 12 muffins. You can definitely double this recipe. I did it on my test, but at the time when I was prepping this, I didn't have more rhubarb. So I decided to make a half batch. So I'm only gonna do 1 teaspoon of vinegar. You need 4.5 ounces, so a half cup plus a tablespoon of total liquid for this. I just weigh everything out because it's easier than dirtying a bunch of utensils. Like normally I just go to 0.2 for my teaspoon of vinegar. You do kind of want stuff at room temperature. It always just combines better when everything is the same temperature and not ice cold, because we are going to use butter in this. So have 2 eggs out, your buttermilk made and chilling while you get the rest of your ingredients ready. So in a mixing bowl, you can definitely do this with just a hand mixer. I've done this with oil and with butter, and oil tends to give a little bit moisture of a muffin. We combat the moisture issue later on because I had to add more flours in order for our stuff to stay suspended. So there's going to be plenty of moisture even if you use butter instead of oil. 2.5 ounces or 5 tablespoons. I just weigh it all out. And then the way that I combat the lack of moisture issue is using a little bit of allulose. You got to be very careful with baking with allulose. I know a lot of YouTubers and recipe creators will say swap out whatever sweetener you like or use whatever keto sweetener. They're not all equal. The allulose holds on to moisture, so if you use all allulose in a muffin, it's going to be super wet and it'll take a really long time to bake and dry out, and by that time you'll probably get really brown on top. These get pretty brown already, and there's only 20 grams, 2 tablespoons of allulose in here. So you got to be really careful with how much allulose you use in recipes. A tablespoon of sweetener is normally 12 grams. but I've always found allulose is about 10 grams per tablespoon. I didn't make these super sweet. I'm not the biggest fan of muffins because of that fact. Like, I'd rather have a cupcake than a muffin. So I dialed back the sweetness, so it's not exactly my sweetness level, but it probably is for most of you that like muffins. The sweetness level on this is up to you. If you don't want to mess with these sweeteners and you want it more sweet, I would add liquid stevia, which is what I normally do in recipes if I find that I figured out the recipe but it wasn't quite sweet enough. But I have found that you can normally minus sweetener quite a bit in recipes with no real ill effect. I'm adding 72 grams of an erythritol. This is monk fruit erythritol. So it should be about 5 tablespoons, a quarter cup plus a tablespoon. While that's whipping, we're going to get our eggs and dry ingredients measured out. I used all my small eggs so far, and I only have like bigger eggs left, so I am gonna weigh them. They've been wildly different. I buy 60 eggs at a time. I wanna make sure I only have 100 grams of eggs. In a recipe like this, it probably doesn't matter as much as like a dough recipe, like one of my pizza crusts or donuts where I have to like really pay attention to the consistency of the dough. This one probably could be fine going a little over on eggs or under on eggs, but I don't want to be like insanely over. And then the last is our set of dry ingredients, which is my normal mix, which is the unflavored whey protein isolate and coconut flour and a little bit of xanthan gum. I just had to mess with the ratios here and up the flour quite a bit in order to get our stuff not to sink to the bottom. So that's why I had to add the allulose, because with all those extra dry ingredients, coconut flour tends to dry things out. So to combat that, I added the allulose. 75 grams, which is 1 tablespoon shy of a cup. So if you want to just scoop out a cup and then take out a tablespoon, you can do that. Probably be the easiest way. And then for a half batch, it's technically 42.5 grams of coconut flour. So I'm just gonna go 42 and then a little bit extra. I always sift my coconut flour, xanthan, and the baking powder that's going in here. Oh, and I'm here doubling it. Oh boy, that would have been bad. I only need 42. This is another reason I use a sifter, because I do that and then luckily it's not all in the bowl. Just a half tablespoon of baking powder, should be about 6 grams. It's really clumpy, so I usually just weigh it out. So that was 6 grams. And then cut the xanthan gum in half. So it's only a half teaspoon now. And I use Anthony's brand. So if you want to make sure it comes out the right thickness, that's what I use. That's it for the ingredients for the muffin. The last thing is the streusel topping, which I have the same that I use for my crisp, for my coffee cake, for a bunch of different recipes. It's a 0 carb crumble because I use whey protein, which my unflavored whey protein from PodoPure is isolate, so there's no carbs in it. Oat fiber, and then I use a brown sugar substitute, which I use the more crystally one instead of the packable one because it gives you that crunchier texture. I just got to get that together. I'm only going to do 2/3 of my recipe because we're not doing a big like 8x8 dish or a 9x13 pan or anything like that. We're just putting a little bit on top of each one. And that was one because I thought it would look nicer. 2, I think the muffin needs a little bit more sweetness, so we're going to add a little bit more sweetness with that, but it's completely optional. With all these ingredients changing, more stuff I have to tell you, which I try not to be too lengthy with these and like talk too much in them, but keto ingredients change all the time, and it's really frustrating because even in the same companies, I'll buy the same products over and over again and they still like just change out of nowhere. So when I made my first 0 carb crumble, which I believe it was a strawberry rhubarb crisp, I used a whole stick of butter in my crumble recipe. Well, now I only use 3/4 of a stick, 3 ounces of butter for an entire batch. But the biggest thing with these kinds of recipes, you want to add stuff until it's the texture you need. Things like my scone and biscuit recipe, the crumble recipe, pie dough, like all that stuff that has these ingredients in it, they're all the same ingredients, but they can vary from brand to brand, from batch to batch. Always add as much liquid as you need to make the consistency you need. So you want this a nice crumbly consistency. If you add all the butter, it might get too wet and then it's not a crumble anymore, it's just mush. to be on the safe side, if you're making a recipe where you have to add the liquid to your dry ingredients, do it to the right consistency. Don't just pour it all in at once. I want my recipes to come out right for you every time you make them. And I hate that I can't go back and like change my videos. I can only make update videos. Okay, enough rambling. I'm gonna put up the ingredients on the screen for the crumble while we get this whipping. And I'm gonna get my 12 cupcake liners ready to go and preheat my oven to 350. You want the butter a little bit light and fluffy and your granular sweetener a little bit dissolved in there. It just helps with the overall texture of your keto baked good. I'm gonna whisk together my dry and my crumble. I'm gonna melt my butter, and then we're gonna get this going. You're just gonna add your eggs, alternate dry and wet ingredients, and then we're gonna fold into our rhubarb, and that's it. If you don't feel like making your own keto breakfast baked goods, these may be gracing my surprise breakfast goods sampler box on my website. I switch out all the flavors seasonally and do different flavors every couple of weeks. I am going to add 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. You can definitely add some strawberry extract, or if you want to add some strawberries instead of the rhubarb, you can do that. I would just use diced up strawberries or freeze-dried strawberries, but those are going to add carbs, so I would definitely minus some of the rhubarb too. These muffins with the 6 ounces of rhubarb, the streusel and all that is only 2 grams of net carbs per muffin. Oh, and one other thing I forgot to do, I looked up a lot of like rhubarb cake recipes and stuff like that, and a lot of them suggested adding some sweetener to your rhubarb. So I am going to add a tablespoon of the granular sweetener. So I did up the sweetener a tiny bit in this. I was thinking about it. I'm like, did I add stevia to my batter? Because rhubarb is pretty tart compared to like a lot of other fruits you would add to muffins. In my cranberry orange one, I think I added a little bit of stevia, and the orange juice had some sweetness to it too. So I just added a tablespoon and kind of like tossed them and coated them all together. You can see my eggs weren't super warm. That's why the butter looks chunky now. So I didn't really have quite room temperature eggs. May just have to mix it a little bit longer. Nice thing about our recipes, at least sometimes, regular muffins are actually kind of hard to get right. Like, you're not supposed to like over mix them, or they'll get like that big peak on the top, or they'll blow out, or they'll sink. You gotta really not mix them a lot. We actually had this kid that we called the Muffin Man because his muffins came out perfect in our high school culinary class, because it's actually not easy to do regular muffins. But we don't have to worry about gluten and over mixing. Okay, add in our rhubarb, get everything out of the way. There we go. Put together our streusel. So I'm not going to add all this butter at once because, again, different oat fibers have different absorbencies. Even my whey protein looked different. I buy them every couple of weeks, probably 3 pounds, if not every other week. And I'll use the end of one and the next one, you know, open the new one and put it in, and it's a different color. And sometimes it's a different texture. So it's not like bleached flour mills that are all the same, you know, so that's why it's a lot harder to do keto recipes than regular recipes. So you just want to lightly mix it and get a crumble consistency. So we're almost there. There's a little bit extra flour at the bottom. That's what you want. Some big pieces, some small crumbles. Back when I made that first crumble, I tried this with egg white protein. I've swapped out pretty much every flour. Like I did egg white protein, I did flour, I did them in like equal ratios. I've done it with bamboo fiber instead of the oat fiber, and it's all worked. It just all depends how many carbs you want to use. This is 0 technically with the sugar alcohols, and I think it tastes the best out of all of them. It has that oaty flavor. Bamboo is a little bit more dry and like, I don't know, the consistency I didn't like as much. Each muffin is going to be about 55 grams. You definitely don't have to weigh it, but I like to make sure all my customers get the same products throughout. So I always try to be as accurate as possible with all my baked goods looking the same and being the same size. Thank you to a subscriber who sent me a little oil sprayer. These do stick a tiny bit, so just one little spray prevent that a little bit. They were still like, most of it didn't stick, but a little bit did. Okay, I usually use my red scoop, but you need to kind of mound it up. 55 grams, about 110. I can only multiply so high, so. I did up the rhubarb from my test, so this is a little bit more than I did in my first test, so you can minus it a little bit if you want. Those ones, I believe, are only 1 carb each with the less rhubarb. These look like they're going to be pretty packed full of rhubarb. I am going camping at my best friend's this weekend, Memorial Day, so I'm going to be treating her with some of these. She is celiac, so I give her treats when she gives me rhubarb. Oh, and I know that rhubarb is a high oxalate food. I only eat it once a year when my friend gives me all from her garden. So I think everything in moderation is key. I don't eat any almond flour, which almonds are high in oxalates. I'm gonna take a little bit of rhubarb out of this first guy, because he had quite a bit in my first couple scoops. Okay, now since we're putting the strudel topping on, I do want to kind of even it out a little bit. This batter will move and go down in there, so you don't have to be real precise with it. Okay, now crumble topping. I'm excited to try this. I haven't tried it with the crumble topping. I did it without it first time. You don't want to have too much on the pan because that will burn. Okay, that's pretty good. Nice strudel topping on there. Okay, these are going in the oven. I'm gonna keep an eye on them. Last time I did do 11, turn 11. I feel like I pulled them out a minute ahead of that, I think. So these are something you definitely want to keep an eye on. You want them to spring back when you touch them, meaning they're not raw in the middle anymore. These are gonna be harder to tell with the streusel topping on top because before you can tell by how brown they were. So if you don't do the strudel topping, you just want them nice and golden brown all around the top, and they should be done on the inside. But you really don't want to overbake them because whenever you overbake keto baked goods, that lends them to be dry also. So you definitely don't want to overbake any of my keto baked goods. So I'm going to throw these in the oven, set the timer for 11 minutes, turn it, probably only set it for like 9 and check them. You'll see that, and then I'll meet you right back here when they come out of the oven. Okay, I only set the timer for 10 more minutes and I just checked them and they seem done. Got 30 seconds left on my timer. You want to make sure they spring back when you touch them. They seem good. We're just gonna let these cool a tiny bit. They are delicious straight out of the oven, but I don't want to burn my mouth. So we're gonna let them cool for a little bit and we'll give one a taste.
12 seconds later.
Okay, I haven't waited too long. They do come off the wrapper better when they're fully cooled. I noticed that when I was too impatient and I wanted to try it right away, they tend to stick a little bit to the paper. This is still pretty warm. I do suggest foil wrappers only if you really care about the outside, because if you get the ones that are just paper, the butter will seep through and it won't look as nice. I might have to show you one when they cool, because it does come off. I swear. But when they're really warm, they don't. Ooh, I might have to wait to show you a good picture and everything. I'm too impatient. I just want to try it. Oh, big crumble chunk. sweet, tart, moist, soft and fluffy. Muffin, delicious. So good. Still piping hot. I was just too impatient. They're super good. Straight out of the oven. All my keto baked goods freeze great, and they are best at room temperature. I would not eat pretty much any of my desserts straight out of the refrigerator because there's more butter fat in them. When the refrigerator is cold, they're going to be hard and not soft and fluffy and moist. So if anything, I microwave them or let them sit out for hours before I want to eat something. But they're super good reheated in the microwave. I usually do like 50% power, 30 seconds, or in the toaster oven. So good. And rhubarb is tart in there, but the crunch on top is super sweet. I'll put up nutrition labels for both with and without the strudel. All my baked goods pretty much are high protein, or at least they're equal protein to fat, so it's not a normal keto dessert. Normal keto dessert is like double the fat, half the protein. Mine are almost all pretty equal. These are so good. So I hope you guys enjoy this recipe and find it super helpful with all the tips and tricks. And literally you can make this base recipe into whatever flavors you want. I've done blueberry vanilla, I've done the cranberry orange, tons of different options. You can mix it up and create your own keto creation. Let me know what you guys come up with down below. I love to hear all about your keto creations. You can always share on my Facebook page or my Instagram, Keto Upgrade Chef, Keto Upgrade on Facebook. You can always just find a post a picture. I love seeing all your creations. Don't forget to check out my Amazon shop page. The link is down in the description box below, along with the blog link to the full recipe. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. As always, I'll be back with more keto, low-carb, healthy meals, desserts, and snack recipes. Bye guys. Happy keto baking.